My name is Joy Kurosawa. I go to Colorado Christian University, and this is my naturalistic observation presentation. I was able to go in and observe a daycare that my friend works at. The kids were representing grades kindergarten through 5th grade, but I was able to follow around with permission the 2nd graders. The background of these families were that they move around frequently. Some of the caretakers or workers at this daycare includes adults that ranged from 30 to 50 years old, and then college and high school students that were 15 to 25 years old. The activities that I was able to observe them in included snacks. They watched some videos, they played some games, and then crafts. So some relevant details about the place and the people that I observed includes that this daycare is specifically Christian. The families utilizing this daycare are actually of various religious backgrounds, although they were aware of the Christian roots. The families were from various parts of the United States, and these families frequently move around, so this would be from anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And in this daycare, the children are grouped by grade level. So, some of the things that I observed include the physical development of the kids. So, 2nd graders are ranging from 7 to 8 years old. And yeah, so the girls at this point were a lot less coordinated than the boys, which became very relevant or obvious when we were in the games room and they're running around. Boys were faster and stronger. 2 of the girls were actually taller and more heavy set, and they did eat more during snack time. It seemed kind of like they were closer to entering into puberty at this point, maybe at not necessarily right at the edge, but you could tell that they were a little bit more developed at this point. So some cognitive developments that I observed is that both the boys and girls were very attuned to the things that were said by the leaders, and the fact that they kept those things in their heads for a good amount of time if they weren't followed through with. So if the leader said that, oh, it's going to be snack time soon, and then didn't come that soon, they would pester them about it. And since this is the concrete operational stage as stated in the text, it was really cool to just connect that with actually seeing how this worked, especially during crafts, how they were able to better replicate what was being done when the leader showed them versus tried to yell across the room and explain to them what to do without giving an example. So that was very, very true. The social-emotional development that I observed, let's see, so at this point, they're 7 and 8 years old. Both the boys and girls they didn't want to leave their parents. Only one of the girls actually cried. One of the other boys kind of just sat for a little while, silently by himself. But normally, I guess they were saying that it only lasts for a really short time, and that's actually what I saw that day too. And so for this specific presentation, I'm going to use all fake names. And so there was one boy named Billy who, when his mom left, he cried a lot. And then a girl named Lily who didn't cry so much when her mom left, but yeah, well, not as much as Billy, but she did cry, and then she was very, she clung a lot to the leaders or to another child. So, yeah. So, the children interaction. So, first, with the caregivers, something that I noticed, so this specifically is about Lily. She was attached to the hip with the leader, as I was saying. Yeah, and then there's a lot of the other kids, they kind of just sat quietly sometimes. Dalton is another, a boy, and he didn't necessarily really acknowledge the leaders very much because he's more one of those boys that like to cause trouble with his friends. Yeah. And then Billy was really interesting because he was the exact opposite, pretty much. He only attempted to get the adults' attention and sort of demanded it, actually. So, yeah. So the interactions they had with the other children, Lily did not like to be alone. Most of the other kids were pretty loud or playful and comfortable. Let's see, Dalton not liked to get in trouble, but he was a troublemaker with the other kids and would kind of instigate that. Billy, again, which is very interesting and notable, was that he didn't even acknowledge the other children, and he was literally only focused on getting the attention of the adult. Yeah. So some of the challenges that I observed is the styles of parenting. So there were a lot of authoritarian and then uninvolved parents. Yeah, so a lot of the authoritarian parents were there more so, of course, than the uninvolved ones. But it was really interesting to see just from the short time that I witnessed them picking up their kids, which took maybe 5-8 minutes. But yeah. Another thing that I noticed was the consistency of the environment. I didn't notice this, but I was just talking to the workers, and they were talking about how these families have less consistency, stability, and less strong relationships just because of how frequently they move around. From my personal experiences, I think the most notable thing is Billy and how just the dynamic of who he was and how he acted. And so he had a sister, and when their mom came, he would not let go of her, would not lose physical touch with her, and just constantly craved her attention. And later on, I learned that the mom is a single mom, and maybe the craving of that attention just has to do with how much she works, and he wants that attention. Not sure. But, yeah, so another thing that I learned is that these kids are 7 and 8 years old, and they're so much more cognitively there than I understood, but they're also still learning at this point. Yeah, and then another thing is just that it is so important to display the way that you want your kids to grow up versus telling them, because that's the way they're going to learn anyways. So some connections that I made to to some scholarly articles, since I made a lot of connections to the text throughout this presentation, so here's some of the quotes. Secure children should have a higher level of coordination and better quality of communication with their mother than avoidant, dependent, and disorganized / controlling children. So this is talking about the attachment styles, and I think we could see, especially in Billy, just how relevant that is, that he was not secure. Yeah. So another one. Child uses fear and humiliation as control agent, intense, overcharged with run-on speech. I actually connected this back to Billy as well, because he would constantly be talking and he would draw attention back to himself with a lot of these things right here in this quote. Another one is income, social isolation, marital aggression, poor family functioning, single parenthood, and maternal mental health. These are all things that were listed in what causes like negative effects in children and the outcome pretty much from their childhood. And it was just really interesting to see from just a single parenthood or just a different lifestyle that these people have, that it really does affect the way that these kids grow up. And not necessarily that they're all negative, but I guess it's easier to see the negative parts of this lifestyle. Yeah. So that is the end of my presentation, and here are my references to the scholarly articles as well as the text. Thank you for listening.